Hello and welcome to Resource Review. Today we're evaluating 3 resources that can help you teach secondary humanities. A downloadable trading simulation game.
What you're going to do is try and earn a living. So in order to do that, you are going to make trainers.
A series of books on citizenship.
The world's richest country per head of the population is Switzerland. True or false? If you think it's true, stand up.
And a video that uses comedy to explore multiculturalism.
I've got no idea where you're going to send me back to.
What do our panel of experts think? We'll keep watching Resource Review to find out. Well, joining me today to recommend our resources is Edward Waller. Edward is Head of Humanities at John Hanson Community School in Andover and also the Chief Examiner for the AQA GCSE in Humanities. Joining Edward, we have Ray Barker from the British Educational Suppliers Association and Colin Hinson, a freelance educational writer. So thank you all for coming. Well, Edward, let's begin then with your first choice of resource. It's called Trading Trainers, and it's a downloadable game. Is that right? Can you tell us what it is and why you chose it?
Well, you're absolutely right. It is a downloadable game. The theme of it is to give students an experience of trading, making trainers for the market in a less economically developed country, and provides a bit of fizz and sparkle to the teaching about global inequality and the causes of it.
Right, okay, and why did you choose it? What makes this stand out from everything else that you could use to teach humanities?
Well, I think it's a particularly good example of something which can actually get quite complicated. It's very easy and quick to download. It's in PDF format. And what you get is a complete set of instructions on how to prepare the game, the technical side of it, and also the conceptual side of it.
Well, thank you very much. Now let's see Trading Trainers in use. We visited Henry Beaufort Technology College in Winchester, where teacher Alison Taggart is using it with her Year 10 class.
Up on the board, we've got the name Trading Trainers. That's the game that we're going to be playing today. What I want us to do today is to imagine that we're in a shanty town somewhere in Peru. Today we were using a resource from Christian Aid or CAFOD. It's a downloadable resource which is aimed at students to teach them about trade. And the aim of this game is to try and get you to understand a little bit about how unfair trade can be. What you're going to do is try and earn a living. So in order to do that, you are going to make trainers. Within the class, there are different groups of students who take on different roles. So there are 6 families who have varying amounts of resources. Some families had quite a lot of stuff, other families had very little.
The people have just been around to take our money, but we didn't have enough to pay it, so we need to pay more next week.
There were also money lenders who went around trying to encourage people to borrow money.
No one's actually wanted to take out a loan yet, but if they don't, they will run out of money.
And there were also the Mercado who bought and sold these and bought the trainers that the students had made.
No, you don't buy it, you've got to make it on your own. We buy trainers off people making them and they get money from us. They buy resources off us to make more trainers.
It does create the right atmosphere for them to learn something about how difficult it is for these people to make a living. But I do think it's an awful lot of work to try and to get to a point where you can deliver it in an hour time slot, because most timetables don't have bigger slots. Those people over there worked incredibly hard, and yet they are still very poor. As a free resource, it's great, but again, it's just the time, really, that's the biggest problem.
Well, Edward, a really interesting resource, no doubt about it. But as the teacher said, a lot of work. Is this just too much to expect teachers to do?
Well, all teachers make a decision about how much commitment they're going to make in preparing a resource. that if you can see that a resource is going to actually pay dividends, it's going to engage students and enable you to get them to be motivated to try and understand why there are problems there, then I think that teachers can be motivated themselves to put in more effort to preparing the resource. And once you've prepared this resource, of course, it's there for use by other colleagues or yourself the following year.
Ray, what are your views on trading trainers?
I think it's a great resource. I mean, I'm very much in favour of those kind of real-world scenarios because an awful lot of material in schools tends to be the kind of, we have to fill up this time, we have to do this part of the curriculum, and often there isn't time for that investigation, there isn't time for real-world scenarios, there isn't time for kids to get there and talk about it. You could see the kids really getting into that problem, seeing some of the big issues involved of you know, what these people have to face. I take the point about time, but you know, teachers do make that choice with any resource. Teachers make that choice. They have their objectives. They need to fulfil those objectives. If you haven't got the time to do it, then you know, you're not going to use it.
Colin, what are your views?
Tackling an issue like global trade and the inequalities of global trade through role play, which is quite a worthy subject, you know, but doing it in a way that the kids can actually relate to, I thought was very, very good indeed. I liked it also at the end where they do make a link to the kids themselves, insofar as they have to think about the shoes that they're wearing, the trainers that they're wearing, where are they being made, how much are those people being paid. So they're making a link between the people in the sort of developing world, if you like, and their own lifestyles.
Yeah. Edward, just finally, how have you found pupils responding to this resource?
We ran, as we frequently try to do, an evaluation immediately after the game. Evaluation of how much they enjoyed it, obviously, but also what they felt they got out of it. And there was an overwhelmingly positive response to questions about, did this help you understand better what it was like to try and live on nothing and getting worse?
Right, fantastic, thank you. It looks a really interesting resource. Well, now let's move on to Edward's second choice. This is a book. It's called This Is Citizenship Studies. Well, Edward, what do you see are the key strengths of this resource?
What I particularly like about the way this book is put together is that it covers a substantial part of some of the units in the Humanities GCSE course, and it does it in a very reliable, very solid and quite stimulating way at the same time. It introduces students to all the key concepts they need to understand in order to make sense of the particular issue they're studying. So, for example, if we were to look at the global inequality section in the book, it would provide a very, very good introduction to what are the causes of global inequality, looking at a case study of the manufacture of jeans, and this work could then provide a very good introduction to the trading trainer game, which could follow this.
Thank you very much. Let's have a look at This Is Citizenship Studies in use in the classroom. We visited Gladesmore Community School in North London, where teacher Lee Carroll and his class are using the book.
What we're going to be doing today is working from this particular Citizenship Studies book. It's a GCSE book. The resource I was using today was a Citizenship Studies book for Key Stage 4 and GCSE. The lesson that we was looking at today was globalisation. The resource was key in terms of developing my lesson. There were two very, very good images within the resource. There was a picture of a young boy who was starving and a picture of another boy who was, you know, well fed. I used that resource to help me develop my PowerPoint presentation in looking at the disparities between Southern and the Northern Hemisphere. The resource was my starting point, and then I could develop it to fit the needs of my students. All I want you to do is raise your cards true or false if you think what I'm saying is true or false. The world's richest country per head of the population is Switzerland. True or false? If you think it's true, stand up. I think the resource that I used today was extremely helpful. It was very well laid out, and one of the key things about citizenship studies is that the resources have to be current. All the images, the way it was laid out was very contemporary, and it would give me photocopyable resources and also give me a bit of background information so I can place the lesson in a wider context. What can you notice about the economic distribution I think the class went well, and I think the students responded well to the resources that was used. They were engaged, and there was, some meaningful discussion. So I felt that the resource was, pitched at an appropriate level where the different groupings within the classroom could get something out of that resource, and push their learning forward.
Colin, how important is it for teachers to have this kind of basis, this rock, in order to teach humanities?
Well, I think it's extremely important. The teachers do need to be sort of one step ahead of their pupils, and to have that sort of solid background of the resource and the material before they actually present it to their pupils is extremely important.
Okay. Ray, what are your thoughts on this particular resource?
I think the issue with textbooks, especially that size of textbook, will be cost, and will be how much you have in your humanities/citizenship budget in order that you can buy these books to supply X number of classes, and how you use them.
Edward?
Yeah, don't you think a real strength of this book, though, is that not only does it say, what is, it deals with the what is for the issue, then it goes on to say, well, how does it work? But then I like a number of the activities which say, well, so what? What do you make of this? What are the issues arising out of this? Where do you stand on this? What judgments do you make?
Yeah.
And I think that sort of fuels good activities in the classroom and can lead into sort of high-level reasoning, if you like.
Well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to Edward's third choice of resource. It's a video, and it's called In Search of the Tartan Turban. Well, Edward, I love the title, but what is it about this video that made you choose it?
Well, if you want to stimulate students to ask themselves challenging questions about what they understand by multicultural Britain, then this is a great starting point.
Because I'm Scottish, and I live in London, and I have Sikh parents. My mum comes from Kenya, my dad comes from India. Right, I've got no idea where you're going to send me back to. My son's born in Falkirk, my daughter's born in Paddington. I'm just very confused about who I am.
So ultimately, if you was offered repatriation, it would be India, wouldn't it?
Well, no, I'd be in the bloody airport going, where am I going?
With the right preparation, this video, only 25 minutes, but it's full of prompts and ideas that can be followed up afterwards.
OK. Well, not much time left, but over here, what were your reactions to In Search of the Tartan Turban?
I thought that this video was fantastic, and a really, really good way of exploring those ideas of Britishness and ethnicity and of multicultural Britain. I think it's a wonderful introduction.
Ray, last point?
Absolutely. I just think that a lot of teachers might be very afraid of dealing with the topic. So I think that there needs to be a lot more support somewhere in that particular package to give a greater proportion of teachers more of a sense of confidence to be able to use it. And then I think it would be fantastic. Yes, it's just great.
Is there some support for teachers?
Well, clearly, referring back to this is citizenship, there's materials there that would be very good to prepare the ground before you looked at this video.
Well, thank you very much. A great suite of resources there that probably work best together, I would say. Well, that's all we've got time for today, but just to recap, the three resources that we discussed were Trading Trainers, downloadable simulation game by Christian Aid and CAFOD, Citizenship Studies, series of teacher and pupils books from Hodder Murray, and In Search of the Tartan Turban by Channel 4 Learning. For more information on all of the resources that we've discussed here today for secondary humanities, as well as to post your own comments about other resources, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review. If you want to, you can email us. We're at resourcereview@teachers.tv. So I'd like to say a very big thank you to our panel, to Edward, to Ray and to Colin. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.